August 9th, 2021, meeting of the tourism, 6 o'clock. Take roll call. Commissioner Wiley.
Here.
Commissioner Wessner.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
All right. 6:01, item 2, citizen comment period. There's no citizens in the room. 6:01, close the citizen comment period. Agenda item 3, approve the June 17th, 2021 meeting minutes. Need a second.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, 6:01. Close the approved meeting minutes. Item number 4, update on the naming rights agreement assets.
So I can just do that pretty quickly here. I pretty much laid this out for everyone in that email that I sent last week. Couple of assets from the original naming rights agreement that had yet to be even discussed or touched. So I went about trying to get those completed before the milkman season is over. And where we stand, it's up on the field. It's also in the bathrooms. I'm assuming they sent me photos of the men's bathroom, so I'm going to just assume it's still there. I'm not going to check. Great. It is in the women's bathroom too. Milk on Tap. We are owed a Milk on Tap show. They run through the Milkman advertising, and originally it was going to be a bovine runs for mayor type of segment. After speaking with the mayor, he said, sure, I love it, but bovine can't be in his physically in his office. He'd cheapen the mayoral office, and he was looking for another idea. Currently, there has been no update since that from the mayor. If anyone here has an idea or thinks something would be really funny, it's supposed to be kind of funny. Please, funny. It's supposed to be kind of funny. Please let me know.
Where would this actually be seen? At the games?
They show it at the games, on all the social media, on their website. So it's typically
broader than just the
yes.
games. Okay.
Yep. Good. And it's usually 30 seconds to 45 seconds long.
Good.
And it's usually 30 seconds to 45 seconds long. It's not anything. And they tape it themselves. Like, we don't use an outside company. It's just all run by the media staff for the Milkman. So that one is something that's still hanging out there in the world. Then there's the presenting game, or the Milkman game presenting partners. We have 3 of those games. One of them has already been complete. I attended that game. They did everything that they were supposed to do. Multiple times, showed it up on the big screen. I found a child to throw out the first pitch because I certainly didn't need to do that myself. I can the next time, but I thought it would be more fun for little kids. If any of you want to do it, this Saturday is the next one. And then the PA announcement that was written and submitted. It is now also up on the website. And that is all I have for that.
Is there any way to trade? Do they still have movie nights?
Milky Way nights?
Yeah.
I believe there's still some.
On tap, somehow give us some assets to their movie night?
I could ask them for that.
Because obviously they have 2 weeks left of their season.
Right.
And if they have, I'm sure they'll be playing movies well into September. Or else, my other question was, is there any trade that we could do something with Hills Have Eyes?
Okay.
Because that should be coming up in, I'm sure, in like a month or 2, October.
Yeah, I think so.
So if they can't get some of these assets done, can we trade for other assets? I guess is my question.
Hills Have Eyes would be a good one.
I'm pretty sure they will say yes to that.
Hills Have Eyes would be a good one.
I'm pretty sure they will say yes to that.
Last year they did, they mentioned us in their Laser 103 or whatever the one radio station was, I believe, for Hills Have Eyes.
Okay.
They also messaged, they also came out with a playoff campaign that I think they did some stuff with us on.
Okay.
So I guess my theory is if they're not, I mean, there might be a lot of stuff going on with their postseason or with maybe if we could tack into that instead.
Will some of their playoff games be held here? I'm assuming they're going to be.
Yeah,
held
they
by
probably
us.
will. They're in first right now.
Okay.
And I think they just announced that they expanded their playoff run. So there's going to be like a play-in game. So I would assume yes. But their last games are the last weekend of August. They have no games in September currently.
Okay.
So. And then that was my only thoughts, is that if you're struggling to get anything done, there's quite a bit more that's going on there in the next few months that if we need to move anything over there into that.
Sure. No.
Okay.
I can't imagine that it would be a problem.
Okay. Well, let's
We can ask.
Joe. Cool. Any comments or questions?
No, I think it's good that they've come around and completed everything. So it took a little bit of pushing. But.
Yeah, I think I'd like to start seeing it be strategized more, like from the start of the season.
Sure.
So we get full exposure the whole year rather than cramming it into 2 months.
Right.
But this is a step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah. Do we have another? Are we sponsoring another fireworks or
Yeah, we have
2 more.
2 more.
2 more fireworks?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And you felt that they pushed that enough?
I do.
Okay.
I felt like it was in line with all their other promotions.
Okay.
And yeah. Felt like it was in line with all their other promotions.
Okay.
And yeah.
It's unfortunate it ended up at 11:15.
Yeah, that first game. 15 innings was intense. And I was like,
Did it
I
really?
have to stay
Yeah.
to see if these stupid fireworks are
Fireworks.
going to go off. And they did.
And they did.
So, and they were good. I'd also hadn't been there for a fireworks game,
Yeah,
so
they
I
do a really
didn't
good
know what I
job.
was
They do a nice
to
job.
expect.
They do a nice
I
job
thought
with
they were
fireworks. Yeah.
very top notch, actually. So it was a good time at 11:40. But
All right. Anything else? X609, sorry. Close the update on the naming rights. Item 5, engage Franklin brand.
yep. So I sent an email today, and then I also put a copy in the packet. Your copy is a little less clear, but this is the Engage Franklin logo that had been worked upon by iNet, who does a lot of the design for Rock Ventures. I've seen about 400 iterations of this, so I would rather, and I can take as many notes as needed.
So just to update everybody, I think last time we were here, there was frustrations and there was some talk about what we envision this, and there's some frustrations on the naming rights as well. I met with Carrie and Joe to go over our frustrations, and we discussed having a monthly meeting to make sure that we stay on top of these things. And one of the things that and pertaining to Engage Franklin, it might seem a little reversed, because this seems a little reversed to me. Like, I don't know if we should be seeing a logo at this point. I'd rather see a contract. But it was very clear that But it was very clear that, I think Carrie would agree, that we aren't moving forward with anything with Engage Franklin until we see how this is going to work out. The attorneys will be involved with making sure that everything lines up in favor of us, for us and the city, and it's the best interest for us. So that has been communicated over to Rock Venture. I also had a conversation with the mayor, and I made it very clear that we aren't doing Engage Franklin until the milkmen uphold their responsibilities for the naming rights, and on top of it, we see an agreement and a contract that is best suited for us long term. He was in favor of that. He also stated that he agrees that we need to push them a little bit more on the naming rights, which I think you've seen. And I think at the end we just need to really talk about Engage Franklin eventually once it comes down to it. This is a start, I guess. I guess I was hoping to see more agreement terms, but I guess we're not quite there yet.
And this came from?
That is from Joe.
Joe.
That's from Joe at Rock Venture, which is Mike, Joe, and Carrie. How it's changed, Mike, Joe, and Carrie. How it's changed, Mike is no longer really involved in the planning and execution part of Engage Franklin. He assigned that job to Joe and Carrie.
Okay.
Which job to Joe and Carrie.
Okay.
Which I'm okay with. I think we all know, based off of certain things, it can take a long time for someone like Mike to do that.
Sure.
So I think these are good strides. It's just a matter of Carrie and Joe are now meeting with Mike to get things approved. So now it's a little bit more of a back. We're now meeting with Mike to get things approved. So now it's a little bit more of a back and forth thing.
Okay.
Before it gets to us.
But it doesn't just go to Mike's desk and sit there.
Exactly. I think we took everyone's frustrations and or anybody that had comments on it, and we discussed it. It was a long meeting. I think we were there for 3 hours?
Yeah.
It started off with, I think Joe came up, he had his book open, and he's like, okay, well, let's do this. And I'm like, well, you're not doing this. And then he said, well, and then there was another guy, what was his name? Chris was sitting in front of me, and he said, well, the contract just got onto my desk to fulfill. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a problem. They worked on it. That's when you saw the email come up about the naming rights on everything that they were holding. And then now this is the end of Engage Franklin that they've started based off of Joe and Carrie taking it on rather than Mike.
So is this 4 different logos, or is this?
No, it's one logo. This is how graphics are provided to you. And I will say one thing about that meeting that Sean and I had with Joe. Joe has been great since then. I don't think he had any idea what tourism meant.
Okay.
And in our meetings that we've had, just he and I, we have it's really moved forward in that way. And I know that that's a very small thing, but to have someone at Rock Ventures who's working with it with me all the time now is a big help.
Yeah. He, I proposed it as, remember when we all talked about the naming rights deal? I proposed it as, remember when we all talked about the naming rights deal and they showed us this presentation? And I looked at it and I'm like, that's what I envision Engage Franklin being like. Like, we're not going to be the ones to set up Engage Franklin for you. This is what you wanted in this deal.
Their view of Engage Franklin is
this is what you wanted in this deal.
Their view of Engage Franklin is a way to make up that gap in the budget.
That gap in the budget. But at the end of the day, we're not going to go ahead and spend money on attorneys to build this thing for us right now. We see it as that they need to bring this thing for us right now. We see it as that they need to bring it back to us, the commission, because this was their idea. This was their part of the agreement. So we did our end of the agreement with the naming rights and making sure Carrie's making sure that upholds. but I think Mike wanted to do. There's a lot that we went back and forth on just pertaining to Engage Franklin if we want to discuss that. But
So once there is a draft agreement, a contract,
that's going to be a
whatever
long
the
meeting
term-
for all of us.
It will be, but once we see that and we like it, the mayor have to approve that? Does common council have to approve
I'm
that?
under the impression no.
No.
It's our baby.
We have the
Yeah.
we have the ability as a commission to move funds. We can hold on to our funds and keep it,
Okay,
or we could literally, if we wanted to, throw all of our funds into Engage Franklin if we
Okay.
technically wanted to.
okay,
It all depends on how we want to take tourism to the next level. If we feel that tourism, there's been some people that say Franklin doesn't have much tourism. So if we feel that we want to throw all of our money into the tourism dollars, but I will tell you, I personally would vote against that right now. If I'm not seeing any return on the formation of Engage Franklin, meaning more funds going to Engage Franklin.
right.
Like it has to be shown that there's more money being thrown out there to tourism.
We had to see growth,
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So where do I think we stand?
see growth.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So where do I think we stand? I think it was a great meeting. I'm glad to see logo usage. I'm interested to see on how the nuts and bolts come into play, Carrie. I know you probably won't be part of much of that. Bolts come into play, Carrie. I know you probably won't be part of much of that, or will be. I don't know.
Yeah.
My question is what does the waterfall?
I was gonna ask
Me
what the
too.
waterfall
I
is.
I don't
can
know.
recognize
There's the
rest of
everything
them.
except.
So I do have questions on the logo. I'm not criticizing.
Unless it's to
Carrie,
me
I'm not
to-
criticizing.
Well, there are four of them
I'm
at Whitnell
totally
Park.
fine. That's what it's Whitnell Park.
It's
But
Whitnell
is
Park?
Whitnell Park
Okay.
in Franklin?
Yeah, well, part of it is.
Part of it.
Is the waterfall in
waterfalls?
Franklin?
I think one of them is.
I
Is
believe.
it? Okay.
I think one of them. Yeah.
Well,
Right.
there's one on the Fox River.
I'll pull out my
around
tape
the
measure.
corner.
I guess I don't. I like Engage. I like how that stands out. I think Franklin, the word Franklin is a little tacky block letter, but that's okay. I'm not. I like it. Don't really quite understand. I did all the trees, the golf, the sun.
What is that gray?
It's a ski hill.
Oh, I thought it was part of the waterfall. That's
Yeah,
too.
I can
I was-
see how that. No,
I
it's
was unclear.
Yeah.
part of the
Should we put?
ski.
No, I'm not gonna say it. We're on tape.
Okay.
The meeting you had.
This is the
Asking for
formation.
some more,
This
formation documents or.
They went through it by showing us what the brand would look like first. So now the next thing I would hope it would be the terms and the agreement.
Yeah.
They can't run forward. They can't run forward with this. Well, they can't until there's some sort of an agreement of the formation of Engage Franklin.
Yeah. It just seems like it's in reverse almost, doesn't it? Like a lot of times you
Which,
start
to be
something
honest
and
with
you know
you,
what the-
to be honest, yeah.
A lot of times you
Which,
start
to be
something
honest
and
with
you know
you,
what the-
to be honest, yeah, but to some extent, they do that with a lot. I've noticed they do that with a lot of their stuff. They form a logo before they form a
and
business.
then they do. Yeah.
So that seems to be by working with them. That seems to be
That's
their
their
nature. That seems to be by working with them. That seems to be
That's
their
their
nature.
Yeah.
Which, what I'd like to know is, has there been any patent or trademark talks of this logo?
No, not that I've been a part of, and I would say I would know if there were.
From my understanding was this Engage Franklin is a multi-principal deal. Right?
Yes.
So I heard you say this is what he wanted and it's upon them to build it. But if it's a multiple thing, I mean, is it of authority,
So
duties, responsibilities, all of those things?
that is a good question, and I think in a perfect world with working with these guys, now we can disagree, we can talk about this because the approach that I've taken with Engage Franklin is when the to you, we were sitting here for 6-7 months, and Mike would one time think that it meant this, and then Callie would think it meant that it was, this is how this agreement was going to be. And then finally, like, I was the middleman, and I was like, okay, well, let's just all get in a room and talk about it. Only I'm more looking at it as, Ed, is if I'm owning a business and I want to go into business with you, I'm giving you a pitch, right? I'm pitching you, and then we talk about it. That's the best, pitching you, and then we talk about it. That's the best idea that I had for the Tourism Commission was, give us your pitch and what you see Engage Franklin as, and then we can come back at you and give you all the do's and don'ts, and give you all the do's and don'ts that we don't think. Now, if we disagree like that, where we want to get them in a room and all talk about this, I can tell you we can do that. It's just a matter of that I'm looking at it as the Tourism Commission has no set responsibility left on the naming rights agreement. The Engage Franklin portion is their identity that they wanted formed, that they were going to pitch us the idea of what it was supposed to become. So that's where I'm waiting for that. I'm open for it. It's just never been brought up.
Well, where I get a little confused is we've got a staff person that's in essence working for two entities, correct?
Correct.
And I don't know that you've been adequately all of that stuff from either of those, to my knowledge. Now, I may be off base, but I just look at it and say if it's going to be a partnership, there should be agreed upon vision and goals and purpose.
With the commission. My role working with Rock Ventures is not. Or it is constantly changing is what is happening over there. Here, I'm bound by what I work essentially for you, for the commission,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have some responsibilities to the finance department to make sure there's a budget and that kind of stuff. But Engage Franklin as a concept, as an idea that is essentially living at Rock Ventures.
Carrie's role is
very-
Carrie's role is to represent us in the formation of. Carrie's role is to represent us in the formation of Engage Franklin. I will say though that if there's no drive from Rock Venture to form Engage Franklin, that's not on Carrie, that's on Rock Venture. Now if we want as a Carrie, that's on Rock Venture. Now if we want as a group want to make Engage Franklin more of a focus, we can push a lot of time that Carrie's doing into that. I will say that I don't know if that's in our best interest. I will say that I don't know if that's in our best interest. That's what I don't think. But I mean, if we as a commission feel that this is a focus, we know we want this formed, we can really take drive on this. But that's where I was more looking at it as Mike is going to pay attorney fees. This would be a very in this. So that basically should be a conversation we should have, is if we feel like we want to be a driver in this, and if we want to be a driver in it, financially we have to see if we can financially afford that, which is contacting attorneys. And then I will tell you it'll be a mutual attorney. Right now he was setting up is he going through a mutual attorney? He was going to go through a mutual.
Yep. Yes.
He's going through a mutual attorney. If we go and set it up, we'd have to go through a different attorney than we normally do, and then we'd have to send it from that mutual attorney to our attorney, so we're paying two attorneys.
For, I don't know if it's we or not, but they're still waiting for the bylaws for the 501c3
Mm-hmm.
or 6.
Well, it's a 3, but they think they might want to make it a 4.
Okay.
So
So,
that's
I mean, if
kind
it's-
of in
if
the
it's-
bylaws.
if
That's
it's-
kind of in
if
the
it's-
bylaws
if
that
it's
has to be
their
determined.
entity, if it's their entity, we wouldn't care that much, but if it's part of our entity, then we would want
We have
certainly
to,
input.
which I think we're gonna have. I think it's a matter of at what point do you wanna have input? Do you wanna have input when you see something in front of you, or do you wanna have input? Do you wanna have input when you see something in front of you, or do you wanna have input from the start of it? I guess that's the question. I can tell you, I was involved in every meeting for the last 14 months or 13 months that we started doing the naming rights.
Yeah,
And I can tell you, Ed, that I started doing the naming rights.
yeah.
And I can tell you, Ed, that there was a lot that I mainly sat in those meetings, and there was a lot that they would forget about what one meeting occurred. So then we were going backwards. So I mean, you chuckle. I mean, it's very serious. I mean, it's very serious. Like, I was in Tennessee with my family in January, and I was on the phone with them all, saying we need to get this done. And at the end of it, there was things forgotten about that we had because we've talked about it for so long. Like, I'm open for the commission if they want us to have responsibility of the formation of this. I guess I was more confused as to how Mike sees this working, because I think there's going to be a huge issue between how you, Barb, Mark, and Lance, and me, how we see it formed compared to how Mike. I don't see it as a sponsorship generated adventure. I see it as a tourism generated adventure, and I see that there's sponsorship issues that they have that are going to be affecting Engage Franklin. That was what I brought up in the meeting when I had it with Joe, was Engage Franklin, because you're going to confuse people that are spending money if you want them to spend money on Engage Franklin. So that was the biggest conversation piece I brought to it. I guess I just don't know enough about how they see the formation. I think we have an understanding of what we want it to do. I don't think they have this.
To have them generate the initial documents, and then us pile on.
Yes.
Yeah. So Sean, for my benefit and maybe Ed's, because you've been involved in this from the get-go, and you've sat through a lot of meetings. Can you just remind us, how were we approached by the Rock, this impression? And correct, I mean, just tell me if, no, Lance, you're not thinking about this correctly, that the naming rights were like an entrance, it was the access way into everything else that we really were interested in, which was some help on the getting an executive director, the light years ahead of where we were at that point. You know?
So I'll give you a quick explanation of it. Well, I was sitting right over there where Barb was sitting, and we were talking about, we worked with Thiel to get the logo created with, I think it was the Economic Development Commission.
We did that too.
We did that with them.
Yep.
We did a
Yep.
survey.
Yep.
We did the city survey with Thiel.
Right.
We decided as a group that we were going to focus more on branding and marketing our community. Amy discussed throwing out billboards, throwing out different things. I threw out the idea that the Rock has no name on their stadium, and how cool would it be to tie it in with that, city entrance boards. I think we even talked about going in with Clear Channel at one point to have a billboard put. I think we even talked about going in with Clear Channel at one point to have a billboard put in the community to advertise and make some money off of. We decided to, as a group, to go forward with the city entrance signs and the advertising banners that we currently have.
Right. Right.
Callie reached out to Rock Venture, connected Mike with the tourism. We sat down and talked about it. The agreement was more than I thought it was worth to take to make that happen.
Right.
We talked about how I see it as if we're paying that $150,000 or in addition, that it's more of like a whole facility thing, meaning we talked about Ballpark Commons not being Ballpark Commons anymore, that it would be called something else. About the Franklin advertising be for the whole complex. That's when the conversation was like, well, then that's worth a lot more. So we want to form Engage Franklin. However, I said we as a group decided we didn't want to pay them more than that $150,000. They're obligated for us to pay them more on top of the $150,000 that we're paying them for the naming rights and the advertising across the whole complex. So from there was a lot of back and forth. I think the pandemic happened. We were trying to figure out how to strategize this. We were focusing more on informing Engage Franklin. They threw up Franklin field signs. We went into this kumbaya, relationship without a contract. Without a contract, and all of a sudden they sent us an invoice for the $150,000, and we're like, we're not signing anything until we get a signed agreement. We're not paying anything until we get a signed agreement. That's when things started to come in fruition, and we started talking about it again. We came to conclude that we were never going to agree on Engage Franklin at this point, and that we were too busy because the formation of Engage Franklin could take years to form with the 501, whatever it's called. So we decided to focus on the naming rights deal, with putting some language in there that stated we were going to form Engage Franklin somewhere down the road.
And that is part of the naming rights agreement.
That is part of the naming rights agreement. So we started going into this season. I feel we were ghost. That's what got us to talking about the assets that we haven't been uphold. There's still things like we talked about a tourism center that hasn't been even
Engage Franklin to execute on those, or we do need Engage Franklin?
We don't. In theory, the Tourism Commission can always have, Carrie would be here whether we had the Tourism Commission, the Engage Franklin or not. I don't know if Carrie would be here, but there would be somebody involved in tourism that would.
One of my questions too then, so, I mean, everything comes down to dollars and cents at some point in time, so.
You're right.
So are we paying half of her salary?
Mm-hmm.
We're paying half of her
Or
salary.
he's paying, so Engage Franklin, would that be half of our funds and half of his funds?
No,
No,
So who would be the main driver, half of his funds?
no.
no.
So who would be the main driver of the
Rock
funding?
Venture.
They would-
Rock Venture would primarily fund Engage Franklin.
Yeah. And then we would determine, at some point in this, we would determine if we would want to, so I should update you on, Mike believes that people should pay into Engage Franklin to form a sponsorship type model base,
Membership.
a membership base. So if you own McDonald's, he wants a membership base. So if you own McDonald's, he wants you to pay him a fee to be part of Engage Franklin. We've told him numerous times that we don't see it that way, because we want everybody to partake in Engage Franklin in some way. And he's like, that would somehow be put into this model. So that's where it got into, our conversations got into this, okay, well, show me what this model is. That's how it got to that, Ed. So it got to it where that Engage Franklin, all during the naming rights, we just could never agree or sit down and come up with what you said, the bullet point lines of agreeing in the partnership. We couldn't get to an agreement in there.
But that's why nobody's out selling Engage Franklin right now.
That's why, yes,
Yeah,
Because there is no Engage Franklin.
there is no.
we can't agree. Is there a commitment from the Rock to fund half of this position here that Carrie occupies as part of the naming rights agreement?
Yes,
Mhm.
they're
So
they're,
Yeah,
that's
it's
a
separate.
place.
they're
from-
obligated.
Yeah.
They're obligated regardless because of the naming rights agreement.
Maybe to provide a spot somewhere in the grounds for a tourism center?
They're supposed to.
Yep.
Okay. And
They are 100%
I
supposed
keep
to.
asking that because, you know, I think what's stuck, and now I know why I thought this way, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought this up.
They
I was thinking that what we were doing on the naming rights, you brought this up.
they
I was thinking that what we were doing on the naming rights, you know, was basically creating a tourism promotion entity, right?
Yeah.
That we could funnel, that we could be justified in using our tourism dollars and funnel money to it because we had an active, it was buying us we were getting a
Yep.
visitor center, we were getting a
Yep.
visitor center, we were getting
Person.
a real live person to execute on the mission of, you know, tourism promotion
we were
at a fairly high price tag of putting the naming, you know, putting Franklin on the side of the state, you know.
I think Engage Franklin, what wowed us, what still kept us interested in the formation of Engage Franklin was the long-term vision of tourism that we saw as a commission. We had struggles to get things approved through the council, back from our aldermen. And there was at one point we were like, okay, we can be a board in itself, but if we eventually want to throw all of our funding at Engage Franklin to spend on tourism, let's be honest, they are our number one driving source of tourism.
Yep.
So we want to, regardless if we like them or don't like
You like
them,
it or not.
they're our number one, especially when they build a hotel. I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but that's going to improve substantially. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I'm just,
I know that.
getting a little smile on my face every time they talk about that hotel.
But the point of it was what really we were able to be drivers in the seat of helping approve it and structure it. But at the same time, I don't think we really thought that it was in our best interest for us to be the front forward drivers of this.
Right.
At the same time, we still have the Tourism Commission of the city of Franklin. If it would be in our best interest for this to happen, I think so. But at the end of it, it's one of those that I think I need to be. I don't have the strength to sit in 2 years. The strength to sit in 2 years worth of meetings forming this with them.
Right.
I really am looking at it like what was nice when they approached us with the naming rights. They had a pitch. We knew what we were getting. We added to that. We said, we don't think it's valued. We added to that. We said, we don't think it's valued to that. This is what we want in return. And that's what made those conversations easy to talk to. Is I put it on the screen for all of you guys. And I said, this is what they said we'll get. This is what it'll look like. This is how signage will be involved.
Right.
Signage will be involved.
Right.
Yeah, and if Mike and Joe can take the reins and create this thing, and we get to guide it without
Yeah.
spending all of our money on it.
I will tell you, I know Carrie and Joe are working to try to get, based off our meeting, Joe I didn't know that's how you guys really felt.
Right. Yes.
And he's like, this is serious. So I think the approach that I left was, there was a little bit of frustration from everybody coming towards me, that I took that frustration and I said, we're not even having a conversation yet on the naming rights deal.
Right.
And then he was like, and I laid it all out, and he was just like, okay. And then I think he pulled out a pen and paper, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to say that they're making good strides. I'm just trying to say, like, I don't know. I got guys, like, how do we want to put a lot of focus into this? Like, that they were promising us. And they're going to get it in return. So just think about this, though, for 2 seconds. Obligation-wise, financially, they are getting all the return in forming this, not us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what is the benefit to us to form Engage Franklin? I can see the benefit to The Rock.
I think the benefit for us is to think about right now we have a $150,000 asset every year. Once they build Lux Golf, once they build a hotel, and there's more and more people going, they build Lux Golf, once they build a hotel, and there's more and more people going there, our sponsorship is going to, it's going to stay the same, but there's going to be more
The venue.
traction to the venue, which means that our return into Engage Franklin could be a little bit more. Into Engage Franklin could be a little bit more if we decide to throw more assets into Engage Franklin to promote tourism. Then you see more people staying overnight, maybe. If you know, if there's outing, I mean, I'm just calling it out. I don't know.
Right.
Like,
No, I'm saying it, or I made that gesture because that's like our core mission is
Like-
people staying overnight. You know, and so, yeah.
guys, the deal at the end of the day, we're stuck in a $150,000 asset,
Right.
and the more tourism that goes to that complex, and the more they build, it's the total that we paid for it, or doesn't. Like, so the way the benefit that we have is we are a partner whether they want this or not. Like,
Yeah. But now, so I'm getting back to that, and I'm thinking, do you feel like we're getting our from the naming rights? Like, especially well, and I asked that because one of the things Carrie brought up was, I'm looking at this tourism center location and or visitor center, and I think it'll be a challenge for people to find it. And I remember we spent quite a bit of time on the inside and all
the
that.
tourism center came up in conversation.
Yeah.
They don't feel that we eventually need to do something, but that's where guys like I don't answer your question.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
I don't think we're getting enough, and I think Carrie knows that. That's why
Yeah.
I sent her an email saying that I don't feel like, because to be honest with you guys, let's take American Family Field for example. Like when Miller Park got pulled off, and trust me, it's like, again, it's bigger, but let's just talk about that.
Yeah.
They took signage off the building. It's bigger, but let's just talk about that.
Yeah.
They took signage off the building. If you drive around it, there's nothing, when you see the stadium, there's nothing but Brewers and American Family Field. Whenever you see a promotion or anything advertising, you're seeing things plastered, American Family Field. Promotion or anything advertising, you're seeing things plastered, American Family Field. I don't see that when the milkmen advertise or promote that they're constantly enforcing Franklin. I don't feel that.
Yeah.
Now, I might have a difference of opinion, which is fine. To your questions, I'm more looking at it as like, I think Carrie has done a fantastic job these last few months getting the assets to where they need to be, but I look at it as, what if we would have had the assets from the start of the season to today? Would it have been different?
Right.
Like, would we have seen a season campaign with the mayor and the milkmen to talk about it and got on some TV show or something like that? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't think we are. But
And I put a price tag in all this stuff, and that's what I feel like. I'm just wondering what the value investment for the naming rights. And one could argue putting Franklin on the side of a stadium. Is that driving overnight visitation to Franklin? People have their different opinions on that. But what enticed me about that, because it was bold, was not only doing that, and it came with this number, but we got this. And I put values on the visitor center. Like what would if we had to release a building and outfit it, retrofit it, and that, I put a number on that, an operating costs per year, and half the salary of somebody that we'd have to pick up full time, put a number on that, and I deducted that from the 150, put a number on that, and I deducted that from the 150, right? Well, actually, we're paying half in addition to the 150.
Right.
So never mind. Okay, so that's not, it's not appropriate. But anyway, I put numbers on that, and I thought, okay, this makes sense. But it only makes sense if you get those values.
I think the one thing that I wish would be a little different was, right now we're so confined to just the stadium. that I think it would be nice to see if they don't have any of these additional assets, we throw it into Hills Have Eyes. If they don't have any of these additional assets, we throw it into Hills Have Eyes. We throw it into the ski hill. We've never been approached for other engaging things.
Right.
And I think the reason why is because they want to focus on this
Right.
across the whole. I think that's where, for me, is the whole grounds. Like the umbrella bar, the Hills Have Eyes, the ski hill, like the Lux Golf. Like, I mean, here's the thing. They have a huge sign now on a fence by Lux Golf. Why are we not on that sign?
Yeah.
Why isn't the Tourism Commission on that? Being advertised or promotion? Why isn't the city being promoted in that? Like, it just says Lux Golf.
Well, you mentioned before about the sponsorships, the 30 seconds or whatever. I guess in my mind, the value would be getting that message in the market's billboard at the park.
Right.
How do we reach those people that they're going, well, I might be interested in traveling there. Oh, here's a website I can go and get the information on where to stay
agree.
and what to do.
I agree with you, because I think we're trying now to correct a problem that a lot of people in this community have, is the fact that it's called Milwaukee. Like, now not only do we have to, like, if I ask my friends, the guys I work with, like on the printing side, I'll be like, hey, you want to go to a Milkman game? Well, where is it? Like, they were like, Milwaukee. Where in Milwaukee? Well, it's in Franklin. So now we have to, I get what you're saying.
We
It's
go
like,
on vacation.
it's in Franklin. So now we have to, I get what you're saying.
We
It's
go
like,
on vacation and somebody says, where are you
Yeah.
from? You don't say Franklin, you say Milwaukee.
I technically say, I say Franklin, Wisconsin.
It's one of the reasons
But then
our
I
name
followed
says
up with
Milwaukee,
it's a
Franklin,
separate-
and the mayor
Yes,
still
yes,
gives me
yes.
a hard time about that.
I always
But
get
it's
it.
one of the reasons that our hotel's named officially.
My
the
wife
system,
always then,
Milwaukee
do people
Franklin,
look
because
at me and then,
that our hotel's named officially.
my
the
wife
system,
always then,
Milwaukee
do people
Franklin,
look
because
at me and then
the
my wife
bottom
goes,
line
this
is,
is
when
Milwaukee.
people are searching
I'm
to
like,
stay in this area, they know Milwaukee more than they know Franklin.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
so we had to
But-
link the two together.
I get it,
Yeah.
but I think that's how we also got to this point, Lance, is that when we talk about marketing and promoting it, no one knew where Franklin was.
Right.
And promoting it, no one knew where Franklin was.
Right. Okay.
So like, when you
Absolutely.
guys from a hotel standpoint, you were promoting it Milwaukee, Oak Creek, other things, or whoever it was.
We were just trying to get the city
Exactly,
to spend
exactly.
city room tax dollars and promoting Franklin as a destination. That's what this was all about, and thank God we got there. I mean, we got the commission up and running. But
Yeah. It's a term vision of Engage Franklin. I'm glad we're having this conversation. When I look at this, I think it can be whatever we want it to be. Like the road that we take after this is formed can be, we could branch off and just completely form a board. We'll form a board with Engage Franklin. That's definitely has to be a must. But how we throw funds into it and what we do with it, that's going to be a huge driver. But I don't know physically if we should be the one to tell them how to run this when standpoint.
do you think they'd be more apt to do some of these other things if Engage Franklin moves forward? I'm specifically talking about the tourism center and some of those things.
No,
No.
I
So
think
we have to hold them accountable for that separate.
Yeah,
than
I
this.
think
Yeah.
the struggle is going to be, and this is where Carrie's going to be, and this is where Carrie's job is going to get a little more interesting once this gets formed. Is there's two contracts we have to manage. There's the Engage Franklin, and then there's the naming rights. Now keep in mind too, guys. I mean, we can pull out of the naming rights whenever we want. Now keep in mind too, guys. I mean, we can pull out of the naming rights whenever we want.
Seriously?
Yeah. If we feel that
Yeah.
they're not,
It's-
if there's a
clause.
breakout in the clause that if we don't
Nation,
feel
you're not
that,
happy.
if we don't feel that they're holding obligation to the agreement, we can pull out. Again, I don't think that's wise. We can pull out. Again, I don't think that's wise. I think trying to get this to work is in our best interest, but that's why I said, like, I don't really think we're really owed the time to spend on Engage Franklin until they start talking to us about it.
Yeah.
I
Mike
would
has
say
to come to
if that's
meeting.
your concern, I would say I would want to push them to I don't understand why it's taking so long for an attorney to draft the bylaws, because that can be done relatively quickly
Well, I
and
guess-
easily.
Yeah.
And get them to get a board, and then their board would have to fill in the law. Our responsibility is to determine how to spend funds. And it could be with them, like you said, it could be with somebody else. And you know, I've been through the process where you're competing with 3 other entities or so that are pitching you a proposal. Here's what we would do with your money.
Yeah, I think the Tourism Commission and Rock Ventures would have the say in how this thing is structured. And then, yes, once it's formed, then that's when the board is formed. Did they talk to you about where they're at with any of these? Has any?
Joe,
Okay.
well, where it's at, bylaws wise, I wrote them. They're sitting with an attorney. There's nothing, I mean, I can check in with her every other day, and she's like, oh yeah, we got it, we're working on it. Like, I cannot force anything, this attorney, this legal, like, I cannot force anything, this attorney, this legal process to move any faster.
So here's what I'm afraid of, and I'm afraid of as more and more gets built on those grounds, how much more does that our naming rights deal cost? How much more does that our naming rights deal cost? And at the end, are we just taken for a ride that this Engage Franklin is never going to be formed, and 2 years down the road it's going to be pulled, and the naming rights is going to go to a completely different person? That's what I'm worried about. Their rights is going to go to a completely different person. That's what I'm worried about. To your point, there's something fishy going on. That why don't we have any contracts in our hands? So to Ed's point, I think we need to really, like, do we need to look, do we have the ability to hold them for not giving us anything on Engage Franklin?
Well,
we
no,
have the-
I have read this agreement 500 times, and it is essentially their problem. Engage Franklin is in their court. So while it can be incredibly frustrating on this, outside of the fact that you look at then you go back to the naming rights and you say, well, if this isn't happening here, we're going to look at this and pull it on this end.
And don't we kind of sort of owe them some money right now?
That we have not been invoiced yet.
Right.
No, they haven't.
But
But yeah, I
But
mean,
they
it's
could.
in a
Yeah.
legal land next year.
Installment of the 150.
You will
Right.
you'll see it come in September.
once the game's in.
I will tell you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the only thing we can do then is hold it. It gives us that weapon to try to force them to get this other stuff
I think
done.
we have to have a conversation of, are we at the end of the day, are we happy that they solidified what they were obligated to do with this, the things they haven't, the tourism center they talked about, they delayed on all the assets. We have to figure out if we're delayed on all the assets. We have to figure out if we're happy with that. But to her point, to Carrie's point, I don't think there's any frustration on Engage Franklin. I'm not frustrated. I can't speak for everybody else.
Right,
On Engage Franklin, I'm not frustrated. I can't speak for everybody else.
right.
I've more learned that with dealing with them, that it's the best approach to let them come to you, because they have the upside in this.
Right.
And that's how we
We
get the
should
naming
just
rights
focus
done.
on
Right.
our stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
And that's how we
We
get the
should
naming
just
rights
focus
done.
on
Right.
our stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I think
Um,
that being a happy commission and doing what you want to do as a commission is much more valuable
Yeah.
than Engage Franklin right now, just from what I've seen.
But I think what I am frustrated with on Engage Franklin is that there's so much upside to doing it.
Sure.
But I'm not losing sleep over it.
Well, we haven't talked, obviously, the budget yet, but I mean, do we have funds available to spend on other things? Or is all of our commitment?
We can talk
Yeah,
about that.
right.
I mean, the last we talked about it was going to be tight for this year. My concern was and I think I mentioned this that what is the hotels actually going to pay into the tax for 2020, because there was some conversations that some of the hotels weren't going to pay the full tax amount, going to audit the hotels for deciphering what tax they were paying, what tax they weren't paying, and then that got the attorney from Quarles and Brady that represented us also brought that up into conversation,
Right.
but it was literally silent from the council. So if you want me to expand on that, if you want me to expand on that.
There's a feeling that some of the, there's 2 branded hotels in this town, and I don't doubt that the Staybridge is paying their fair share. In fact, they probably weathered the pandemic pretty well because it's an extended
They
stay.
did.
And I know our extended
Yep.
stay hotel did kicked ass on our Hampton Inns.
Yeah.
So supposedly, and I don't know your guys' rules, and I might come out and say it wrong, but you don't have, if you sell your rooms or rent your rooms to, let's say, a construction company that is doing it a longer term rental or lease, you don't have to code to a tourism tax or ties to some sort of.
Right, any guest that
Sorry,
stays 30
that's-
days or more,
Yeah.
they pay the sales tax and the room tax up till 30 days. And then if they stay that 30 days and beyond, then we back off all the city tax and room tax. We don't pay it to the state of Wisconsin, we don't pay it to the city of Franklin, and a way to form that we fill out.
Yeah,
for
so
Franklin.
supposedly the city stated that a large number of the hotels that were rented in 2020 were longer term lease from like construction or some other types of projects. So then I just was like, oh, wait a second, who's going to audit that that's factually true? So then I just was like, oh, wait a second, who's going to audit that that's factually true? And there's nobody from the city standpoint that is actually spending the time doing that.
Right, that
So,
would be-
and what frustrated me there was the city is going to get their cut first. There's no obligation to the city to audit those paperwork. There's no obligation to the city to audit those paperwork, that accounting paperwork, to benefit us. And that's what I was worried about.
Lance, just to confirm, you're saying that if someone stays at the hotel for, let's say, 28 days, they're paying all the all the taxes. If they're there for 32 days, paying all the all the taxes. If they're there for 32 days, that even those previous taxes are not paid?
Right. Now, if you know that up front, we don't charge it, but we
Wow.
typically charge you because, we can't force guests to stay with us. I'd love to be able to do that. But, so if they leave on the 29th day, we want them paying the tax all along, but you
Right.
get the other thing that may be reducing, I'm curious, I gotta find out from the city if they're actually getting these funds. So, when you book through an online travel agency like Expedia, Travelocity, well, the kink in the whole system, or the issue in the whole system was those agencies weren't paying room tax, city room tax, to any organizations are supposed to collect it and remit it. And here's what hotels do on our end, okay, now that that's happening. We don't collect it, okay? And so we list that stay. We have 2 designations that we have. We have 30-plus day stays, and we have what we call tax exempt stays. Now, tax exempt stays would be a government employee slapping down a certificate of room tax. But the others, tax exempt now, room revenue is for somebody on an Expedia reservation, for example. Expedia is supposed to be sending those funds to the state of Wisconsin and to municipalities like Franklin. So we don't report it. That stay is tax exempt, so we don't pay it to the city of Franklin. Expedia should be paying it. And that could be
I
a
should
reason
ask,
why.
yeah.
She brought that up, and she emailed, I think, the mayor, stating something about that a while
Because
ago.
we've seen that go up because of the.
Right.
the-
It had to do with Airbnbs too.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's the thing. Well, that's really
Airbnbs.
what forced the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think the mayor stating something about that a while
Because
ago.
we've seen that go up because of the.
Right.
the-
It had to do with Airbnbs too.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's the thing. Well, that's
Airbnbs.
really what forced the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Supposedly we're not getting those funding.
Right.
He kind of threw that out the door.
we are getting or we're not?
We're
getting?
not.
So,
And
that's the thing. Well, that's
Airbnbs.
really what forced the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
But
Supposedly we're not getting those funding.
Right.
He kind of threw that out the door.
we are getting or we're not?
We're
getting?
not.
So I think it's paid into the state of Wisconsin because the state wants their sales tax too on that, And
I don't remember what the email was. Out the door.
we are getting or we're not?
We're
getting?
not.
So I think it's paid into the state of Wisconsin, because the state wants their sales tax too on that, you know. And,
I don't remember what the email was. I could try and dig it up.
yeah,
It was
because
a
there's
long
funds
time
out
ago.
there then. Because what happens is that, well, as you guys know, you've all made those reservations. You pay a rate, you show up at the hotel, and your rate, it already shows that you're paid. And we actually just run the room charge and bill it back to Expedia, but that's all we do. And Expedia gives us a Ghost credit card, or a credit card that's valid for only the room charge. And we charge it, and that's how we get paid.
Okay.
Okay, that's how that works. But online travel agencies, OTAs, said they'd start doing this. We've then gotten into the habit of, we're now not charging, well, we can't, because if we put tax on these reservations and try to go to Expedia and using their credit card, guess what? It declines, because they have it down to the penny. You said that rate was $129. 2-night stay, that's all this card's good for, you know. And so, because that's how
Yeah.
that's been going. So that could reduce hotel contributions to room tax because of
Yep.
that situation.
Right. I know in Racine, we were a standalone, Real Racine's a standalone nonprofit, and the CEO would have to reach out to the state of Wisconsin and say, hey, what is Racine County doing for OTA funds? And then every now and then we get a check, like random. I don't believe it's
So is that
policed very
something-
well.
Is that something we can do?
Yeah, I can, like, Paul Ratzenberg would need to do that because he's the,
Okay.
Paul Ratzenberg would need to do that because he's the
Okay.
level that would need it. But
And I'm just going to
So
follow up on something
tricky.
you said, and I know, but real quick about auditing. That is a big ask. You know, I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't think there's a city I've ever been involved in that's actually, I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't think there's a city I've ever been involved in that's actually come to our hotels and, hey, let's see your books here, and we're going to compare your what
Yeah,
they rely
my-
on is the ST12s that we figure out.
My only thing was that they knew exactly what was going on. They knew exactly the money we were talking about.
Yeah.
So there was a little more information that they knew
Or more comfort level with
from
the
it. Yeah.
revenues.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but I will say that municipalities like Franklin require us to send the ST12s that we submit every month to the city or the state of Wisconsin. And they do compare, so she was looking at the overall tax revenues. But that's how most kind of figure that out.
Is this something, Lance, that the Hotel and Lodging Association has ever dealt with? You know, any of these kind of audits?
Yes,
making
they've been
sure?
pushing
Do they?
hard to get the OTAs and especially Airbnb to play by these rules. Disruptive model, that was great. But again, you don't pay city room tax on your, cottage rentals, yet, the hotel has to collect it and increase the cost of their goods and services to collect it. So we've been really pushing hard. And we're trying to make it more streamlined. It should be transparent. Expedia revenues that were generated in the month of March, for Franklin, and where's that payment? Like, how did it make it back to the treasury, or to the city government? So.
all right, back to engage Franklin though. So where do we take it from here, Carrie? Do we?
regarding what?
Do we?
Regarding what? The logo or Engage Franklin in general?
Should we? I mean, I guess between now, we're going to be meeting with Joe, right? So we should just.
Right.
I'll make it noted that to Joe that we'd like to see some sort of. I'll make it noted that to Joe that we'd like to see some sort of. We've been asking for some sort of documentation, some sort of like attorney language that we can go over, and we'll see what he states in that.
Just a 12 or 15-page document is
He states in that.
just a 12 or 15-page document that says draft on it that we can go through and.
Yeah. And get Quarles and Brady in here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. What do we think of the logo? We happy with it?
Are we supposed to choose which one we like better, or are
They're all the
of them
same.
I think they're all
Well-
the same, and I don't think we have to. We're not voting on anything right now.
I
mean,
wouldn't nitpick on it, and nobody's gonna come here and saying, I expected a waterfall, where's the waterfall? I mean, it
Right.
doesn't work that way, but
Yeah.
I'd rather, the whole thing.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I agree. I think we I think we take the approach that we can't say much about this until we kind of know what our role is going to be in the formation of Engage Franklin. I can say that none of us, we don't hate it,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, I
It's
would say-
essentially
I think
looking
you
for
can say
something
that.
owns you about
No,
it.
there's nothing
Then
that.
I would say it when
But
you
at least
see
paying
it
for it.
That's
being
my
used.
point. Like, yeah.
You could-
So I
you
mean,
could put it
I
on
think
Facebook,
I
you could get all
think
kinds
the
of
way
people.
though.
Oh, right.
that-
I can't wait for step
Guys,
2.
I think how this would come into play though is that there will be language on how this is used
Sure.
that we will have to eventually agree upon.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really anything we can say about it.
Nope.
It's a logo that can't be used. That how you're like you're not going to run out and use this tomorrow.
They can't use it for anything right now.
The only thing it could go on
Nothing.
is it could go on social media.
No,
Because-
There's no entity.
No.
Yeah, well, celebration of Engage Franklin.
but it can't be formed until something is formed.
It
Well, how could it be and I'm sorry, excuse my not knowing the answer.
No.
How can that be the base when it's a city commission?
Yeah, this can't be used until there's some language behind
yeah,
it.
well, I'll
So-
have to tell them that because that's
Yeah, this can't.
definitely
That is all about. This is all about him doing and asking for forgiveness later type approach, and that's going to piss off this commission.
well that it pissed me off because I
That's
said
what he's
I'm
doing.
not going to be
That
I
explains
cannot
a lot.
promote Engage Franklin until it exists. And then I got slapped for not doing anything.
Not going to be, and I don't mean to talk for the commission, but we are not okay with using this until we see
Okay.
language on
Great.
how Engage Franklin is formed. I can't be more clear on what we said to Joe, that we need to see language, we need to see attorney documents, we need to it's going to flow. Again, we need to see the damn pitch. Like this cannot be on anything until like we are a tourism commission that we will run as that until we all agree to Engage Franklin.
Okay.
Sorry.
Right.
That's going to take
So that-
forever.
It will be for
That'll
That's
take
true.
forever. We can run with it until it goes through. It
Okay.
goes through that, but the point is this can't be
We don't
used.
want anybody to use it.
This can't be used until
Right.
this exists. It doesn't exist.
Right.
And how can you sell something by a logo? Like, whatever.
I think it's a way of doing business.
Well, I mean,
over
right
there,
now,
so-
if somebody said, "Yeah, I'll write you a check for $5,000," you can't deposit it anywhere. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's no.
Yeah, exactly. Where are you depositing the money? Into a Rock Venture bank account that they'll.
Well, you could do, I mean, there are DBAs, right? So you can call something anything you want, but it's really Ed, you know.
Right.
So you're writing a check to Ed, but I'm doing business as.
Would the
Engage
state
Franklin.
would your hotel give money to Engage Franklin when you don't? The
Engage
state
Franklin.
would your hotel give money to Engage Franklin when you don't and you don't even know what it is?
No,
No,
but I'm not
exactly.
saying that it couldn't be used, yeah,
I'm
right?
just saying, exactly. But my point is,
There's
like,
a difference between getting
that's
soliciting money
like,
and
I don't know. That
using
seems
the
like a
logo,
big
so-
scam. Like, I don't know about you. That's
Yeah, if they're out there asking for,
I don't know about you. That's
yeah, if they're out there asking for funds.
so okay. All right. 709. Enclose Engage Franklin brand. Item number 6, purpose and mission of the Tourism Commission. Mission of the Tourism Commission. I did not bring. Did you bring any of the things? Does anybody have? No.
All I have is what was on
Yeah.
the website.
Okay.
yeah.
So I think we wanted to spend some time tonight discussing our purpose and our mission is in going forward because we've had a lot of requests. We've had what was the band? The concert series asked for some things, and as agreement, we take what we've actually done and bring it. But we were going to talk about a little bit about what we formed this commission to be and what the purpose was. Do you have anything in your files, by any chance?
Well, yeah, I have that original. This.
I can use that.
outside of that, there's not a lot of documentation on what this,
So-
what you want to do.
And I don't know if we want to just, if we want to discuss this, because I know probably, Ed, you probably haven't seen it yet. Have you seen anything like that? No. Have you seen anything like that? No. So I don't know if we want to table this for another time, but
That was included on a previous packet.
The mission statement is that the Tourism Commission is to promote the city of Franklin, Wisconsin, and primary destination in southeastern Wisconsin for fun, business, and entertain and recreation. Primary destination in southeastern Wisconsin for fun, business, and entertain and recreation. The core values are the pillars of which we decide how we will spend our funds. These are market. We engage in marketing activities designed to increase tourism awareness. Brand. We engage in marketing activities designed to increase tourism awareness. Brand. We brand Franklin as a place that has high quality of life for both residents and visitors. Welcome was a pillar. We support visitors and businesses. Develop. We partake in activities designed to bring additional revenue streams to the commission and the city. If a fund request or initiative does not fall into one of these four pillars, the Tourism Commission may choose not to proceed with said. Please keep in mind that the state statute tourism funds must be used for tourism promotion and development that is likely to generate paid overnight stays at local hotels. If you like requests or funds or assistance from the Tourism Commission, we invite you to present one of our monthly. Please keep in mind the above mission and core values when making your requests, and be prepared to provide answers and questions to the following. Request and organization contact info, event and project description and timing, impact on lodging, how does your request translate, i.e. how will this request get us heads in beds, event project budget, please include the full budget of your event or project as well as the amount you are requesting from the Tourism Commission. If necessary, prioritize your needs clearly so we know where you need the most support. Use of funding support, please describe in detail how the funds from the Tourism Commission will be utilized. You may choose to present a written document or pre-utilized. You may choose to present a written document or presentation, or you may talk to each of these points, but please make sure that all above questions will be answered when making your request. So just so you're aware, we took a day, and we met, was it like a year ago? A couple of years ago?
More than a year.
2 years ago? 3 years ago? To form these pillars of how we were going to function and operate as a commission.
And we had input from the mayor too,
Yes.
during that session.
Yes. So I guess this is a conversation piece. I think it's to remind everybody of what our values are and our mission we want to move forward. So for an example, I know the frustration came up on why we didn't participate with the concert series. Is that what it was? And I know that there's probably some questions of the Forte Theater, why we haven't participated with anything with them. We should probably go around and see how everybody feels about this, pertaining to what we invest our money in. This is where, and I'll start, this is kind of where Engage Franklin, I think, was going to help some of these smaller Forte Theater, which they are partnering with them on now. And that was going to allow us to be part of that by allowing Engage Franklin to support not just what's going on at the Rock, but the community in a whole. So I think me as a member, I'm more looking at it as until we form Engage Franklin, do things like that fall into our pillars that we feel we need to support and help. That's how I feel.
I think you gave a good summary there, but we all agreed on what the mission and what the pillars.
You want to see
were.
this?
I don't need it. But we did see mission and what the pillars.
You want to
were.
see this?
I don't need it. But we did see Engage Franklin as a way to get around that. If somebody like the concert series came to us, and they're not going to generate funds by overnight stays, Engage Franklin would be a way to address that.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
And that differentiate that from the Tourism Commission. So if we're talking about just the Tourism Commission, unless we want to change those, I think we have a good understanding. And nobody has come to us with any of those things. Here's my budget, here's what I'm asking for, here's the priority I need, here's how you can help.
Out in the community yet, has it?
It is.
It is. We've published that in our.
I think it's probably on the site, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's on our site.
Now, and the reason we came up with that was because Forte Theater was coming to us and saying, can you help me? Well, okay, what kind of help do you need? Where does it fit? And we want. And since we had that, nobody's come to us, other than the concert series. And I don't know if you gave them that and asked for that information.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
And I mean, they came with a proposal,
Mm-hmm.
so it may not have did.
But much of their proposal was, you gave us $1,000 last year,
So
and
I
would
want
you
it
like to
again.
do it again?
Yes,
Yeah.
very much so. And that is, if you're going to go down that alley, then you're in it forever.
Right.
So
Right.
until you break it off, and then bad things,
In
can come
in
of that.
Berlin, what they were doing is they had,
Bad things,
in
can come of that.
Berlin, what they were doing is they had, their Lions group was really active. So they had a snowshoe run, and they brought people in from outer Wisconsin plus different states. They did a run, they did a plein air art competition. They would do they did a plein air art competition. They would do things, and then there were a couple of other nonprofit groups, historical groups, things like that, and they'd ask for a grant, and they divided the money that they had at the time was $50,000 a year, and they said nobody could have $50,000 a year, and they said nobody could have more than $10,000. The downside was it was the same group that was together for a long time, and they go, okay, here's a proposal for $10,000. All those in favor, yes. And then they go down, and all the money's gone, and they've still been trying to do. So those are some of the pitfalls of doing that.
I think that's a
I
very
gotta-
common thing. I will tell you how I stand on this. Tourism is supposed to promote everything and fund selectively.
I got an idea though, and this is just me trying to help everybody. We're eventually going to form Engage Franklin that we think can support this. Is there any way that we can funnel this and do things with the Rock Foundation?
If you are, I'm out. I can only handle so
No,
many
not you. I'm not
agreements
saying you.
of
I'm saying
this.
not saying you. I'm saying that that Joe and Mike need to see that these are things that would be coming into Engage Franklin. So my point in the purpose is this something I would like to give them something, a direction on where they can go to be successful in obtaining this. And I think that's where I'm looking at is, can we uphold some assets that we have in terms of, like Forte Theater's doing a ticket night with the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any, like, that's no work for Taylor. That's no work for Taylor. Like, at the end of the day, it's promoting ticket revenue that can go to obtaining some of the events that this is going towards. At the end of the day, it's going to be part of Engage Franklin that helps support that. So I'm looking at it as like going to be part of Engage Franklin that helps support that. So I'm more looking at it as like, can we give them a guidance or a direction on where to go instead of saying no?
Well, my question about the foundation and Steve Taylor's role there, have they given any money to anyone? Or are they simply collecting it at this point? I haven't heard anything about their sponsoring of any organization.
I can't answer that. I do not know.
Okay.
We would have to ask Steve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess I'm more looking at it as like, I'm not saying for more work, like, hey, we have this agreement, we sponsor this is what we can build with you that they have that we can help support, that can help support things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the only thing I'm trying to get at is like, I think we're pinned into a hole because this was supposed to support things like across the whole community. That's my only thing is like, I hate that we sat here and said that this formation was going to eventually go to this, and it's taken as long. And I get what you're saying, Mark, like at the end of the day, we're obtaining our pillars, but it's more, to me, I was just thinking like anything we can guide them in the right direction on how to get support with this.
Well, you had said that the Rock's vision of Engage Franklin would be a donation type model. It'd be perfect if they want to spend donated funds on, if it doesn't impact the people that are donating, but it leaves the room tax dollars out of it. You know what I mean? So there's a clean break between this, this commission, but still would be an avenue for them to potentially get funding.
I agree, there's a need for an entity like Engage Franklin, where that's that's really involved in promoting Franklin as a place to live and to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really not our role. And that's why I was jazzed about this creation too, because I saw it as a way to, to create something and see something thrive that could handle those types of requests. And like getting back to what you said is by the naming rights agreement has kind of put us in we're locked and loaded. We're spending so much money on those naming rights that we're all in sort of there,
Yeah.
And owners, I think it says, especially when it says, hey, listen, kind of tell us how this is going to bring people to Franklin, and make them jump through those hoops, and if it does, great, we'll fund it or we'll look at it. But this is where I know this, I just want to step back just a little bit. I think it's totally appropriate to hold, because if we're not, there's $150,000 a year that we would have
We could use for
to other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we could, I'm not still, like, you wouldn't get me to say we should then take that money and just anybody that comes around and says,
Right.
I have an idea. But it certainly would seed things like, and it's going to be a 2-day event, and it's going to bring people in from all over the state. Well, as a hotelier, I know they're going to stay overnight. Is that good seed money for, is that good for the Tourism Commission to seed? Absolutely. But there's some other things that are great community events, but really they don't fall under the tourism matter. And that's naming rights is getting us, because if we're going to get it, great, let's go. But if we're not, then
Yeah, I think we need to. I think we need to push them more than we need to ask for answers on Engage Franklin. I think at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, because again, we're not able to support or trying to push this to the full extent. Then I think we already need to start having the conversations. Are we happy with the naming rights?
right.
I think we have to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
Because we need to start positioning ourselves properly if we're not happy. Or we need to start telling them this is why we're not happy and this is how you're going to improve this. But I think Engage Franklin should be one of the top things that is involved, is that we thought that it was going to be a community-wide effort through Engage Franklin to help support things other that we can't support, the littler guys that need our help, that we can't help based off our pillars. So that's where we need to figure out how truly happy are we.
I would agree.
We need to figure out how truly happy are we.
I would agree with you, Sean, and I come from a public relations viewpoint. And there are times when you do things that won't put a single head in any bed, but it will make the citizens of Franklin feel very good about living here. The citizens of Franklin feel very good about living here. It's a good community effort. It's a good public relations effort. And I look at what other communities have been doing with their tourism dollars, and it's making people feel really good about living there. Not necessarily bringing in visitors, except the relatives, perhaps. I don't know.
I fully
anyway.
agree with that. But I think that can be done in marketing and advertising and things that it might not be an event. Like, we should selectively fund events. They need to be the right event. But can you up the jam for Franklin? Yes,
Right.
you should be
yes.
doing that. But we have to be careful event-wise on what you want to do. My other concern is, the more we're talking about this, is there has never been a mention whatsoever in my entire time here that Engage Franklin is going to help out the little guys in the community. Single time. And if that's the case, then I need to completely redirect
Yes.
Joe's
That's
efforts.
100%. That's 100% the sole purpose. The 100% sole purpose of Engage Franklin is to not only is that we would, and this was a really big ask from Cal's standpoint, was that we understand that there's going to be this buy-in model, but what about the person that can't afford the buy-in model that we are going to support?
Okay.
And there was going to be some, we were always engaged, but also the little guy.
Okay.
So meaning, when you take away when you think about it like this, Carrie, when you have the Rock that is packed every weekend, what about the restaurant down the road? What about his hotel? What about Crossroads? What about
Right. That's tourism.
What about
The Conservancy.
everything? What about Franklin Little League? What
Yes.
about it was going to be there was at one point, I will quote Mike Zimmerman, how much would it cost for me to paint the water tower? To paint the water tower. Because he went
To
to
put
some
what
place.
on it? Like to put.
Well, he thought it would be cool. Maybe
The new logo,
the
perhaps.
no logo, or do you form it in like terms of a cow, or do you make it say Engage Franklin? He looked at this. There was conversations that we would that the Engage Franklin will help support, and the Milkman would help support some sort of school effort with reading and we talked about milk cartons that were in the form of with the Milkman and informed Engage Franklin on it, and there's some reading programs. It's a full community reach, not just a Rock Venture reach.
Okay. Get that. I appreciate knowing that, but is that tourism then?
The idea of it was that there would be tourism have at the Rock. That's where we were going to feed into our naming rights agreement, and that's where the Rock Foundation was going to help support some of this. That's where the Milkman was going to help support some of this. That's where all these assets that you had to work with.
Yeah.
It wasn't you
No,
that was going to do this.
I understand.
It was that part of this formation of Engage Franklin. So if you needed Bovine or somebody to go to community events to not just promote the Milkman, but also to promote Franklin, they were going to do that. It was a community-wide effort on their part. He wanted to give back. He wanted to give back to the community, not just he wanted to show that tourism can be heavily affected and he can help tourism across the whole community. That's what he envisioned it. Across the whole community. That's what he envisioned it.
Okay. So what's the commission's job?
The-
Just this commission. I don't care about Engage Franklin right now.
The-
What
right
are,
here.
To decide how to spend
right
the
here.
tax revenue dollar.
is that what you're all okay with?
At the end of the day,
Tax revenue dollar.
Is that what you're all okay with?
at the end of the day, we can't be okay with anything because there's nothing to be okay with right now.
But there is, the Tourism Commission exists.
The Tourism Commission stands by these 4 pillars.
And that's, okay.
That's what
And
we're, I
that
think
is
that's
what everyone
I think
has
that's what we're
decided on.
talking about. I think what we're talking about though is we want things like this, and we now don't.
Yeah.
And
Because we have that big $150,000.
yeah, and I think
And-
some of us feel that we have some sort of heart that we did have our thought when we put these pillars together, how we were think this is where the anger of our agreement with Rock Venture isn't being upheld. Because
Okay.
now we are put into this hole, like I said, and we're not able to we're not able to consider the little guys, the people that also need help. There was times like when we created the logo thing, like we didn't have to help them. We didn't have to pay for this, but it was a joint effort.
So Rock Ventures agreed to want to fund from their own funds reading programs in schools.
They never, they state that was an idea of what was thrown out of what we could do. It was never stated like this is what we were going to do. It was.
Did they say
there-
who would fund something like that? It doesn't have to be that exact program, but some community.
No, it was when we were talking about how exciting it would be. It was Engage Franklin wasn't just a Rock Venture thing. It was a community-wide effort. So it was It was a community-wide effort. So it was
I get
never
that.
like and we threw out ideas of like this is what it could be like, or this is what it could be like. Oh yeah, we could do this. Yeah, we could do that. We talked about doing like walks. We talked about doing like community events, like walks. We talked about doing like community events. We talked about like
Right. Okay. My concern is that those were talked about, and I fully
they were
support all
talked
those
about
things.
for a total of 2 seconds. But my point is that that's where it was more of like, okay, well, my point is that that's where it was more of like, okay, well, this seems like it could be a lot. Let's rewind and not talk about the formation of Engage Franklin. Let's talk about the naming rights deal because we already have our name on this building. Again, I think it's 2 separate conversations. The people you have that have been in here are more frustrated that we stand by these pillars. I think we all agree to this. It's just a matter of, I think we're frustrated that we once helped somebody and now we're not because we thought that.
Understood.
So it's nothing like, I think the road you have to figure out what Engage Franklin is going to be a very challenging road. I think it's going to be a very challenging road for all of us to have these conversations. But that's where I'm telling you, this is a really good example of why I said, because it's been like.
But don't you
literally-
want to do something as the commission then? Because if not, then you're stagnant forever. Until you either pull out of the agreement or you wait for them to get
Okay,
it
we
set.
can have that conversation. So yeah, I think
asking.
I've made it very clear that we are not going to pay them $150,000 a year until we see $1,000 a year until we see that we are getting our best interest on what we have in the naming rights agreement. If we need to start talking about how to exit out of this agreement, I'm completely okay with having those conversations right now. But at the end of the day, we've made it very clear that could happen. At the end of the day, we've made it very clear that could happen. Let's be honest, guys. Like, we have put more effort into, other than Carrie, we put more effort into our naming rights deal than they have.
Mm-hmm.
And we're paying them the $150,000 deal than they have.
Mm-hmm.
And we're paying them the $150,000 a year. We're sitting here at 7:30 at night talking about how it could be this and it's not. And at the end of the day, they're obligated to make this all work, and they're not. So we need to remember all this when they send us an invoice. For all this when they send us an invoice for $150,000.
But it sounds like we should schedule a meeting with them and say, look, this is what you still owe us.
Oh, that's a bunch of. Sorry, I agree.
Well,
Yeah.
but that's how you get it on file.
I think we did that.
Okay.
I think we did that. I think that was the purpose. Very, very clear.
And is it
As to
documented
how-
that they can go back and you could take it to a lawyer and say, look,
Like
we told them this.
Yeah,
the
we were right
answer-
here.
Carrie was right there.
Okay.
Took notes on everything.
Okay.
Took results from everything on what it was. I don't think the problem lies is there. Like, if we really wanted to get out of it, here's where we're at. I don't think we would need something like that at this point. I really don't.
Okay.
I think at the end too, Carrie knows that her job would be safe, but it's a matter of. So I'm sorry, Carrie. Commission has been that Engage Franklin was going to be a community-wide effort in regards to using the assets that Rock Ventures has to employ tourism and community service to the community.
And it's been in the works for 2 years?
Yeah, a long time, man.
In the works for 2 years?
Yeah, a long time, man.
So, I mean, not that I would advocate this because I'm not a fan of theirs, but it would make everybody's life easier to give the $150,000 a year or $75,000 a year to visit Milwaukee, and they'd say, here's what you get for it, we'll do it automatically. And they'd say, here's what you get for it, we'll do it automatically. Your meetings get cut down to very little.
Yeah,
You know,
there was
and
just
then
so
you could
much.
use half of that money for something else.
There was just so much effort behind of what we wanted it to be, and we could never agree to it. And I could never agree to it. And I think the thoughts and what we liked about it was the amount of traction that they have at the facility and what that is going to grow into in the long-term role. I didn't mention too, and I don't know if I should really go backwards. I did reach out to Oconomowoc to see what their naming rights deal was worth.
Oh, for the new field.
It's a spend on how much product they buy or sales spend
Okay.
based off of the what is it a beer spent on product. So it's
Tickets
a
too, or just product?
product.
Interesting.
Now the general manager over there once was a Rock Ventures employee. She was the vice president for them.
The other Carrie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sounds like she made
Okay,
out.
so back to this, I think, back to focus on this. Do we all agree to these pillars? These are what we want to uphold. These are what we want to, this is how we want to run our commission. We don't feel like we need, but I think going forward.
I think they're valid. For,
But I think
for
going
the tourism
forward,
commission.
I think going forward, we need to figure out, we need to remember, Barb, like what we were talking about with the Forte Theater, how, like, when when we're remembering Engage Franklin or how this can be formed, we need to remember that. So, okay. Anything else on this? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. 739 funding request. Close the purpose of the Tourism Commission. Item number 7, funding request form.
Yeah, we can pretty much, I couldn't do anything with that until I knew what the answer to number 6 was. So I will go ahead and complete my special events grant, which is essentially what I'm doing to change the form, which is taking this, everything that we're requiring of them, and putting it in an actual application. Doing that because if we were going to change our mind, this form was not going to function at all. So I will go forward with making that, following these pillars.
Have you given any thought to making sure, requiring that the organization requesting the funds has a certain percentage of their own.
Or in showing their budget,
Yeah.
what they plan
Well,
to
but
spend.
you can show the budget, but I mean, in the decision-making criteria.
I haven't said that if you
'Cause-
want to do it that way.
Well, I
That's-
mean, again, I've been in meetings where a group says, if you give me 10,000, I'll do this. And, well, how much are you putting in?
Oh,
Are you
yeah,
gonna-
I'm
are you
asking
gonna
for
s-
an itemized,
But
this
what I'm
much.
saying is, if you're asking, and I'll just make up a number, if you're asking for 10, are you at least putting in 5 or 4,000 of your own, or is the
Yeah.
or is the
Right.
whole thing dependent upon the money we're giving you?
I think that that's portrayed in the application, because I ask what you're spending for advertising, marketing, operations, food, drink, whatever you
But
want.
we don't require a
But
certain
it's not
amount, a certain
required.
percentage or a-
Right, because what if someone has an amazing event and we set a threshold of you have to spend this much of your own money? Then an event and we set a threshold of you have to spend this much of your own money. And it's an amazing thing, and we have to turn it down because they don't meet that. I don't think anyone here would want or would say we're funding your event completely without knowing what they're putting in. Event completely without knowing what they're putting in. Or
Well, I
you
mean,
can't
but I
do
could,
it.
I could put together a budget, and I could say, this is why I'm asking for the money, because I'm gonna spend this, this, and this, and this, but I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna make money off from it, but I'm not gonna put any of my own money in it, because I'm gonna take all money off from it, but I'm not gonna put any of my own money in it, because I'm gonna take all the money from you, for example.
I don't know how to police that.
Well, I'm just
That's
saying.
part of a trust in a budget,
I'm not
or
trying
in a-
I'm not trying to police it, I'm just trying to say, is that gonna come in at all to the decision-making process?
I think that.
Decision-making
Yeah,
process, for
right.
sure.
It would
like,
be
do they
listed
have
as
skin
a
in the game?
right,
Exactly.
and it would be clear in the
Mhm.
application if they do or do not.
I agree.
I don't know another way to go about
And
addressing
you ask
it.
for that info, well, we'll see
Right,
the
on the
application, it will say,
Mhm. Yep, right. The application is quite. It is.
I think we probably have to vote on the form, just so you know.
Oh yeah, Yeah.
So once the form is complete,
and you can make any changes you want to it.
we can vote on it and we can talk about it. I think the purpose of this is to state, yeah, go ahead based off the pillars to create the form.
Yep.
So that we have something that we can go off of. Any other comments? All right, 742, closing the funding request form. Item agenda 8, the 2022 budget.
I met with Paul Rotzenberg about the budget for 2022, because they have started their process in the other departments, and it is very. It's a proposed budget, so it's very clear on how you want to go about it. You want to ask for more than you know. You always want to be. You want to go about it. You want to ask for more than you know. You always want to be overstating what we think we're going to spend, as opposed to understating, which is just generally a rule of thumb when it comes down to tourism and most government budgets. But anyway, what they're looking for in 2022, and most government budgets, but anyway, what they're looking for in 2022 is a get of $342,000. That's a lot of money, but
Wait, that's what they would get?
no,
Or
that's
that would get?
no,
or
that's
that's
what
what
we
we
get.
would
get. get.
That's what we get, but take away 150 for your naming rights right off the top.
Well, that presumes the 494.4, correct?
Correct.
When's the budget due?
It has to be approved and ready to go before the end of the year.
Okay. So I think if I wrap my on our expenses on what we know we're going to spend, there was a template they gave us.
Yep, I have it.
Okay, and then you and I met, Amy and Callie met to go about it, enter in all the things we know, and then we brought that back to the commission and we put in there anything outstanding.
Us to be able to, like Sean and I, to present a budget to this commission next month. Because then it still has to go on from there. I mean, this budget is not a detailed budget.
This
Yeah.
is not a detailed budget.
Well, and the form that we,
Collecting 8%, is
Yep.
that right?
Yeah.
And you all heard how that went down, right?
right,
That didn't get collected from the start of the year. Most hotels had till, they announced it, but they didn't tell the hotels. So you gotta tell the hotels they can collect it.
So,
So
It didn't
it
start
started,
until-
you
What'd you
had
do?
until March.
Okay.
We actually started collecting in February, so we actually started collecting in February, so we
Oh.
remitted February starting, so we missed 1 month. But any other if you weren't collecting it, you had till, you started in March. if
Okay.
you wanted to.
so guys, if I'm reading this correctly, for 2020, at the end of 2020, wait, it's 2021.
Yep.
Sorry.
Right.
So at the end of 2021, wait, it's 2021.
Yep.
Sorry.
Right.
So at the end of 2021, they'll cut us a check for $328,000.
It's
Yes.
assuming you got 480,000.
And,
Right.
and this is where I'm getting at, because this 2019 must be actual, right? 359
Yep.
is what they did.
Mhm.
All right, because I can just tell you where hotels are at in 2021. They won't even do what they did in 2020. I can just tell you where hotels are at in 2021. They won't even do what they did in 2019.
Oh,
All
to
right.
the- yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We're not going back to 2019. So if we took in 359, I realize that was 6%. But even if you add 2%, I just don't see
So
where
let's
we're
take
much
off
above.
20%.
Yeah, I think we're lucky if the revenues for 2021 will be 363. I mean, it'll be right around what they were in 2019. You know what
So
I'm
if they're
saying?
right around 2019, you're talking
So we don't
that
have
would be there was 2019 was 359. We got 175K at 6%. So we're talking like, yeah, I mean that's going to dump down to
Just don't. I mean, I can tell you where that's what I'm seeing. Like we're in 2019. You know, for a whole year we ran. I'll just give you an example. We ran close to 70% occupancy, right? We're on pace in 2021. We'll be lucky to get to 55, 56. Now, I think the Staybridge is probably looking at and saying if we get close to 2019, we would consider it a huge
Yeah.
win. So I know there's extra. Thank God for the extra 2%, but I just don't see. One, I don't see the hotels making the same revenues they did in 2019. So
Right.
we won't even get there. 360, 375, maybe 380, but that would be, I think, all you could figure on just for 2021. Just the way things are going right now.
Where did these numbers come from? Who created those?
Paul.
Paul. Yeah.
So how does he base
think-
the, did
guys,
he
I
talk
think-
to you?
Well, he would base it on actual receipts, I'm guessing, right?
From-
Right,
from
and
what-
projections.
Well, he would base it on actual receipts, I'm guessing, right?
From-
So
Right,
from
and
what- yeah.
projections, but he has inflation.
I think
and,
what we
you
need to
know,
do-
He has like increased revenues in there, minus a pandemic. I mean, we still
Right.
don't
Yeah.
know what's going to happen.
Carrie,
Right.
can we take this and put this in a mock budget?
Yeah,
Like, can we see where we're at in it?
yeah,
Like, can we see where we're at now, and then with his number proposed with what we currently have, and then you and I can talk about what we're dealing with for 20,
what's fixed
22.
and what's fixed and what's
what we're dealing with for 20
fixed
22.
and what's fixed and what's
exactly.
Yeah.
I think we need to look, yeah.
right.
Yeah, I just
Well,
want
your
you to deal
revenues
with a
are
more
impossible.
realistic revenue
Huh?
figure. Just a more
Yeah,
realistic.
more
revenue.
real.
Yeah,
I think
this
this
is
is
not.
great. This is a great proposed chart. But to your point, we should probably look realistically. So, again, is that something you do, or is that something that they have you doing, or is that something that's
Yep, I have
okay?
to do that.
Okay.
Right, and this was not proposed to be anything specific. Like this was literally starting point one.
Just-
I cannot go ahead and create the budget. I would need. I can't even do that legally alone. Like Sean has to.
I think
Do that too.
I think what
So-
we need to do, based off of the conversations we've had tonight, we need to put it together in a budget form for next meeting, because I have a feeling that there is some frustration here with our current agreement, that we at least need to know where we're at on paper financially. I think that's a start, and it'll allow us to give some wiggle room as to what do we feel comfortable investing more into our relationship. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. But just as an editorial comment, it'd be nice to take off, because I think that last
No
column
kidding.
is just something to club us about the head with.
Well, yeah.
I'm more looking at it as that the last column doesn't exist, because I
Yeah.
really don't think that that
I think that
920K
last
is
column,
anywhere close to
some
being.
of our aldermen would say, this is why we hate you.
You're sitting on all of this money.
I don't think this is factual, though.
You're sitting on all of this money.
I don't think this is factual, though.
No,
I don't
No,
think that.
no.
I think this is more of like,
They just added up those numbers,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah,
yeah,
And they're
it
bogus.
doesn't take into consideration what's not there.
right. So that was an editorial comment.
much appreciated.
That was an editorial comment.
Much appreciated.
Okay, we can do that. No?
Yeah, you should do that. Right on. Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Was Franklin grandfathered in, so, was Franklin grandfathered in, so for the 5 years, each year they get to retain less?
Shows on here is the 30%, you can see where they either get 30%
That's what I thought it was,
Yeah,
but I wasn't
so
sure.
you see, so we start getting better, our percentage increases as we go on here. As those revenue at the 151,
Right.
94.
Okay. It is 7:51. I'll close the 2022 budget conversation. Agenda 9, voucher approvals.
There aren't any.
There aren't any. Okay.
So we would like
10, the next meeting.
So the regularly scheduled meeting date would be, I don't know why I never write this down. Thursday, the 16th, September 16th.
I will be gone.
I'll be out of the country.
Then it cannot happen, so let's choose it. As long as it is after like 1 month from now, because I run into, there's rules about if we have monthly meetings, they actually need to be at least a month apart. So that would be like after Labor Day.
So September.
The week of the 20th?
I'm not back until the very late 21st. So the 22nd, I'll probably not be.
23rd, but if we're clenching postseason, I will not
Yeah,
be
right.
there.
Could the
because we will clinch-
23rd
Right now, we're on
work?
pace to clinch the 26th.
I could do the 23rd.
You could do, will you be functioning from wherever you're coming
Yeah.
from? What about the 23rd?
23rd is good.
Works for Barb, works for
I
Lance.
have to check, I may be in Green Bay.
Let's just call it that for right now.
For right now. Okay. And then we can go from there. Okay. And then adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.